Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Your Holiness.
Namaste.
Your Holiness.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Okay.
Tashi Dele, Your Holiness, and warmest greetings from your chela and prostrations, and our deepest gratitude for who you are, all that you do, and that you are with us this morning. We are all deeply blessed and privileged. I'm going to request Mr. N.N. Vora, the Life Trustee and President of the India International Center in Delhi, with whom the Foundation is collaborating, to set up this engagement with you on a subject very dear to your heart, the Nalanda tradition, and Ahimsa and Karuna. Mr. Vora is a distinguished civil servant. The IIC has provided a valuable, intellectually engaged space for a discourse on a diversity of issues, and certainly on Tibet. He's had a long and distinguished career in the administrative service as Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, etc., etc. I could give him a long introduction, but it's over to you, Mr. Vora, for a formal welcome to His Holiness.
Thank you.
Namaskar. Namaskar. Good morning, everybody. Namaskar once again, Your Holiness. As Rajiv has just mentioned, it is a matter for great satisfaction that while we had been at it for some time, that this very important webinar has materialized this morning. And we are extremely grateful to His Holiness for having agreed to speak to us on a subject, on a topic of great importance in the context of what is happening in the world today. In welcoming His Holiness, I have great pleasure in being joined by the senior-most active member of the IIC, Fali Nariman, who is also perhaps the senior-most practicing advocate in the Supreme Court of India, and my former colleagues, some of whom I have not met for a long time, like Karuna Roy, whom I had the pleasure of meeting and hearing and making use of a great experience and knowledge before I went to Kashmir. I also like to particularly mention Dr. Saida Hamid, whom I've had the privilege of knowing for many years and collaborating on many good ventures. My three other colleagues, I particularly like to mention Shiv Shankar Menon, with whom I've worked for many years together, and my two distinguished colleagues, Life Trustees in the IIC, former Foreign Secretary Shyam Saran and former Governor Pal Gandhi. We particularly also like to mention Mr. Prakash Amte. Now, on a personal note, Your Holiness, I would like to recall that on the very day I joined service, 61 years ago, the then Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, informed the country of your entry into India. And after I finished my training, I circumstantially got posted to erstwhile district Kangra, which was part of now Himachal. And district headquarters were Dharamsala. And the day I joined, then by that time you had very comfortably established yourself in Upper Dharamsala with all your staff. And I was one of the first civil servants there to seek your audience. And as it happened, as perhaps Shyam Saran may recall, we had more than one Foreign Service officer as a liaison officer. And he fell ill, and I did temporary duty with Your Holiness in your establishment in Upper Dharamsala for about 2 weeks. And during the course of my service, particularly in Government of India, I had many occasions to seek your sage advice on matters of national interest. On all these occasions, it is again interesting, I was accompanied by a young Shiv Shankar Menon, who was my colleague in the Foreign Service. We together used to meet His Holiness to get his advice on certain matters of great sensitivity. Subsequently, I happened to get deployed in Jammu and Kashmir, as Rajiv just mentioned. And during the 10 years, I had the privilege, Your Holiness, of every year paying homage and meeting you and getting your blessings when you used to visit Ladakh. And now, of course, in the IIC, you've been our very, very special guest for the past over 40 years. So, not to extend my speech too extensively, I would conclude by once again extending a very warm welcome to you and thanking you for so graciously agreeing to speak to us on a theme or subject which I feel is of great importance in today's world. Thank you very much, Rajiv. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Holiness.
Now, indeed, I feel very happy through television talk with my long time my friend. And as a matter of fact, now last 61 years, 60 years, 61 years, India is my home. Yeah. As Prime Minister mentioned in, I think, UN, the Buddha was Indian. It is true. All our sort of thinking, firstly, on the basis of Buddha's teaching. Now here, Buddha, mentioned, "Oh, my follower should not accept my teaching out of faith, but rather thorough investigation and experiment." So that's quite scientific. So the later Nalanda institution, take, I think, the main center of Buddha Dharma. All these Nalanda masters exactly follow Buddha's sort of advice. They always investigate every Buddha's teaching. They raise question, why Buddha said this? What is the reason? The Nalanda master never say, "Oh, this is Buddha say, must be true." No. Always raise question. So Nalanda tradition, eventually, 4 different school of thought about Buddha Dharma. The Madhyamika philosophy, Chitta Mantra philosophy, then Vipassana.
Vaibhashika.
Vaibhashika, Sautrantic, and Chitta Mantra, and Madhyamika. Eventually, different, different school of thought. So then, although we are Tibetan, our face not like you, big nose, but mentally we are Indian. Since 8th century, even first, the 7th century, the Tibetan first king who married with the Chinese princess, very close link with the Chinese emperor, or Tang dynasty. But then he, prefer the instead of study Chinese language, he decided to develop our own script, copy from Indian Devanagari, Kakakanga, Cha-cha-cha-cha, like that. Not like Chinese, the
Characters.
characters, like that. Then, 8th century, a Tibetan king inspired very close link with Chinese Buddhist. See, he wanted to bring Buddhism directly from Nalanda institution. So, 8th century, the great scholar, logician, Shantarakshita invited. So when he reached Lhasa, he advised to Tibetan emperor, Tibetan king, since you have your own language, so instead of study Sanskrit or Pali, you see, you should translate. So some scholar mentioned to me, Shantarakshita, very old scholar, his writing about logic, about philosophy, still we study. So, you see, some scholars say, he himself, you see, pay some attention, study Tibetan. So, according his advice, now eventually we Tibetan have 100 volumes about Buddha's own word, own teaching. Here, many common books which exist in Pali tradition. And Vinaya, these are Buddha's own word, about 100 volumes. Then Nalanda masters like such as Nagarjuna, Arya Deva, Arya Asanga, like that. You see, the Nalanda masters were writing the subject logic, philosophy, psychology, and of course Vinaya. So all together about 200 volumes. Altogether 300 volumes. All translation, mainly Sanskrit, like that. So we, including myself, you see, we, from childhood, you see, we learn these texts, the root text we memorize. I myself also, I think 6-7-year-old, already started to learn some of the root text, memorize. So, we Tibetan, all our mind filled by Nalanda thought, Indian thought. And then usually now these days I'm saying this physical survived with Indian dals, Indian rice, Indian chapati. So mentally, physically, I describe as a son of India, Indian citizen, like that. And then more important, I'm longest guest of Indian government. So now I'm very, very happy is having talk with my Indian friend. Now you may already know You see, now I'm 87-year-old. I have, you see, 4 commitments. Number 1 commitment, I'm a human being. I'm one of the 7 billion human beings. We human beings need 1,000-year-old India's tradition of Karuna. With Karuna and Ahimsa, that humanity really need. So my number 1 commitment, try to promote India's sort of concept of Ahimsa and Karuna as a human being. And again, you see, Indian tradition, secular, not necessarily as a religious practice, but simply we are human beings. We have to live together on this planet. You see, last so many centuries, human beings killing each other. And the previous century, First World War, Second World War, is immense sort of violence. But actually, we are same human being. We have to live together on this planet. Now, even these days, some conflict. You see, all this is due to thinking, emphasis, we and they. Basically, we are same. Physically, mentally, so we are same. So now today's reality, Easterner depend Westerner. Western depend East. Similarly, North and South. So now, particularly global economy, now no national boundary. So now the reality shows we are same human being on this planet. So I'm trying to promote awareness, oneness of 7 billion human beings. This is my number 1. The second, I'm Buddhist. The religious harmony, very important. It is very possible. Look, India, all major world, different religious traditions live together in this country. And because of India's tradition, Indian Muslim, they never, you see, expressed to me the because of the difficult relations between Shia and Sunni, whereas some other country killing each other because of Shia and Sunni. In this country, you see, all major religious traditions live together. Look, India is, I think, the only nation where all major world religious traditions live together. Besides India's homegrown different religious tradition, but from outside, Judaism and Christian, Muslim, and then Zoroastrian, all these come from outside, but very peacefully settled in this country. So India is an example, religious harmony possible. Now in this country, over 1,000 years, different religious traditions live together. So, number 1, my commitment is try to promote religious harmony. All major religious traditions, it's in different tradition, different philosophy. Some say there is God, creator. Like Buddhism and Jainism, no such concept. In philosophy or way of thinking. There are differences, but all carry same message of compassion, message of love. With that, message of forgiveness, tolerance, self-discipline. All major religious traditions carry these principles. So, I think it's quite simple. Religion of human being. So all religion, you see, emphasis importance of basic human value. That is human compassion, human love. As soon as we're born, without mother's love, affection, we can't survive. And now some scientists say, we human beings are social animal. Any social animal, the sense of concern of their own community, biologically, that's there. Look, animals, any social animal, the individual animal always take care about their community. So since we are social animal, we individual have to live on the basis of our community, human community. So now some scientists say we are basically more compassionate sort of sentient being. Irrespective whether believe next life or not, whether there is God or not. You see, we have to survive with other people. So my commitment and all the religious tradition, their main message is message of love, as I mentioned earlier. Since these religions are human beings' religion, on that basis, I'm trying to promote religious harmony. Then, my third commitment, I'm Tibetan. Tibetan people trust me. They put a lot of hopes on me. Now, regarding political matter, since 2011, I totally retired from political responsibility. We already achieved elected political leadership. So political matter, he take care. That my sort of also the main concern is regarding Tibet. Firstly, environment. Now, according to some scientists, now global warming now increasing. So next few decades, global warming really reach the danger of these major rivers, lakes of Tibet eventually dry. Like Afghanistan, we are neighbor. Physically also you see very close. So we can see when we're flying on Afghanistan, you see there are traces of the big lake or big river now become very small lake and like stream, small rivers. So eventually Tibet also become like that. So therefore, we have to take serious care about ecology of Tibet. Then most important is Tibetan culture. Our culture, before Buddhism came, our culture, very simple. Like Mongolian, like nomad, very simple life. Then eventually, Buddha Dharma reached Tibet. Then many Tibetan, Tibetan, come to India, study and different Indian sort of Buddhist center, like Takshashila, Takshashila, then Nalanda, like that. And Birkamalashila. So, you see now, it's quite clear. Tibetan Buddhist tradition is very much a logical approach. Therefore, I myself, my own experience, I have sort of very close link with modern scientists, because we are not just a faith, always you see investigation. So many scientists, you see, showing interest, and I myself also, according my own experience, you see, mutual learning, certain sort of subject which mentioned in science, and when Nalanda institution there, then these not yet developed. So now we have, you see, new subject about, you see, scientific sort of certain field. So we have now also direct sort of contact, mutual learning, very useful. So Tibetan Buddhist tradition, very rich. Sometimes I jokingly telling my Indian friend, traditionally, you Indian are our guru. Now modern time, not necessarily you are guru. Traditionally, we are Chela of India. Now seems to see the traditional Chela become guru. So my main sort of concern and responsibility is to preserve this 1,000-year-old tradition which come from India. This is third responsibility. Now fourth, my responsibility, all this knowledge come from India. Now modern India, you see, too much emphasis about materialistic sort of life, materialistic education. So now these ancient Indian knowledge about mind, about psychology, these should revive in India. So India have the ability and also the opportunity to combine modern knowledge through modern education, and then ancient Indian knowledge based on Ahimsa and Karuna, and already about 2,000 years ago already developed the concept of shamatha, concept of vipassana. So these are ancient Indian knowledge. Now modern India should combine modern education, which materialistic sort of has a viewpoint.
Oriented.
And ancient Indian knowledge about mind, about emotion. These days I'm used something like, you see, hygiene of physical, hygiene of emotion. Hygiene of physical, the modern education, sufficiently, you see, as they deal, and further investigation. Now, hygiene of emotion in modern education, nothing. So, hygiene of emotion come only Indian tradition, based on Karuna and Ahimsa, as I mentioned earlier. You see, these, you see, should combine as the hygiene of physical and the hygiene of emotion. So now that's my fourth commitment. Try to revive this ancient Indian knowledge, which we kept over 1,000 years in Tibet. Now this Indian, which you can combine easily, modern education, and then ancient Indian knowledge combined. I think previous century, Mahatma Gandhi ji, I think show world Ahimsa. So number of people from different part of the world really very much attracted about Gandhiji's non-violent approach, like Nelson Mandela and
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King. So now, if you combine modern education and ancient Indian education about mind, then you can offer world about mind, about emotion. Now world facing a lot of problem due to emotion. So the India sort of knowledge how to tackle our emotion strictly
Secular
way. Religion is individual matter. These are simply, we are human being. Everyone wants peaceful world. For that reason, peace of mind very important. So that's my fourth commitment. Try to revive ancient Indian knowledge in modern India, like that. So now some questions now.
Thank you, Your Holiness. I'd invite Shiv Shankar Menon, who met you when he was 5 years old and got your blessings in Lhasa. So that's a long association that you've had with him. He served as National Security Advisor and Foreign Secretary. It's over to you, Shankar. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Thank you very much for that really enlightening talk. My question is, how do we apply Karuna, Ahimsa, compassion to politics today, especially international politics, when the world frankly looks quite anarchic?
Now I think on this planet, I think basically those also the more knowledgeable people, I think really fed up about the present condition. You see, too much emphasis material value and too much emphasis we and they. Not thinking about oneness of human being, and unfortunately, including religion, my religion, their religion. So that I think now many world thinking people really fed up. So therefore, now things are changing. I think the people of this planet, the way of thinking previous century and this century, I think must change, including mainly, I think, scientists and many also education people now really also they're fed up about the past complicated, narrow-minded thinking. So now, now there are, I think, a sign people fed up, and yet they do not know how to sort of new way thinking. So now India have the potential or ability to offer. I think it is, not nice, say by myself. I think many people loves me And so all these knowledge actually come from India. I think you know these knowledge come from Tibetan Samba. These knowledge come from India. So the India now, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, I think since British introduced education according English sort of style, Western style. So then meantime, sometimes I also have a little sort of critical view. When India become independent, then Mahatma Gandhi ji and these all sort of great Indian leaders should pay more attention about education. So the revival of ancient Indian knowledge about mind, about Karuna, these things now should revive in this country. So there, I fully committed. So therefore, so since I think world really fed up about existing sort of way of thinking, education. So now many thinkers, you see, seeking some new way of education, new way of thinking. I think India really have great potential. This is my feeling. They not necessarily, you see, use the word Nalanda tradition. Then immediately, you see, get the impression Buddhist tradition. I prefer just the Indian tradition. The Nalanda, India. All the Nalanda masters are Indian. So Indian tradition, mainly Ahimsa and Karuna. This, I think, world can utilize like that. Thank you. Then next question.
Your Holiness, our next question is from Mr. Fali Nariman, who's India's preeminent jurist, and his very strong connection with you was he accompanied you on your Pray for India journey to places of worship and pilgrimage of different traditions, one of your great passions. Mr. Nariman, your question. Please unmute yourself, Mr. Nariman. Yeah.
Thank you. Your Holiness, in that heartwarming book of joy, the two of you who are really spiritual giants, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and His Grace the Archbishop of South Africa, have acknowledged that you spend many hours in prayer. Now my question to His Holiness is, and this has been troubling me for many, many years, what is the true significance and importance of prayer in the life of every human being? Thank you.
I think prayer useful on the basis of person who have some faith. Then prayer very good. But then, as I already mentioned, secular way, nothing to do with religion. Then prayer not much relevant. Simply, I feel thinking, our mind, our wisdom, thinking, analyze. Then you get the conviction, non-violence, Karuna, ahimsa, these are key factor for happy individual, happy community, happy world. Not thinking about God, about next life. Simply, you see, how to build peaceful world. In order to peaceful world means, firstly, in our heart, peace must develop. So that's India's Karuna and Ahimsa. That's the basis of peace. So through knowledge, through education, you can, you can develop inner peace. So that's more important rather than the days and weeks prayer. Then Bishop Tutu
No.
Ruba.
Lela.
Tutu Ruba.
No. Did the chapter.
Ka.
John Chilenge.
Oh. Bishop Tutu, since my, I think, first visit to Africa, or even before, some meeting, public meeting, as I already said, we developed very close feeling, Bishop Tutu. But we, not much sort of emphasis about prayer. So, prayer means, you see, you believe some higher being, like God. So, since Bishop Tutu, we become very, very close friend, really trusted friend. So, one occasion in Canada, public meeting, you see, he very much praised me. Praised me. Then at the end, he mentioned, unfortunately, this person is not Christian. Then, since we very close, also the friend, so I invited him, come here. We spent a few days. Now later some books also now appear. So, you see, we was a serious discussion. Then, one occasion, he teasing me. He, as a Christian believer, God. I'm Buddhist, no believe God. So he, as a Christian practitioner, after death, he ready go to heaven. Dalai Lama goes somewhere different place. So, strictly speaking, you see, I'm non-believer. So, most probably go to hell. So, the prayer in ancient time, yes, with faith and prayer, including Buddhist, we always say pray, and recite some mantra like that. Nowadays, according to secular way, I feel use human intelligence properly, thinking. Then everybody, without any question, every sort of sentient being want peace. Even animal, birds, small, tiny flies, all, you see, want peace, happiness, do not want disturbances. So now use our intelligence, then the basis of happiness is inner peace. Where there is inner peace, then happiness comes. But sometimes, I think, frankly speaking, sometimes we pray day and night, but with some kind of fear and sometimes anger. That's not very proper, like that. So now, as here, one sort of example, one my friend, who are scientists, you see, he want to spend about half hour like that, while I sort of carry prayer or meditation. You see, that scientist, you see, want join with me. So we sit together, and then later, you see, that person really very much appreciate, you see, meditation. So as a matter of fact, you see, later that person, you see, expressed since that period, his whole life changed. Some say that. So I feel most important is use human intelligence combined with human, as a social animal, warm-heartedness, combine human intelligence and human, compassion combined. That's the basis of all religion, like that. Yes?
Your Holiness, the next question is from a professor of history and politics. As a public intellectual and writer, he has campaigned and supported the agendas of Your Holiness, and has lobbied for an award of the Bharat Ratna to you, India's highest honor. He's Gopal Gandhi, who happens also to be the grandson of the Mahatma, to whom you dedicated your Nobel Peace Prize. So it's over to you, Gopal Bhai.
Your Holiness, it is a great privilege to be in your presence. I have a question which is almost like a confession. It is like this. Both prayer, when I am in a mood of faith, when I am in a mood to believe in God, so both when I am in prayer and when I am in doubt and when I try to use my intelligence, I am confronted with a sense of helplessness when I see that Karuna and Ahimsa, two things I believe in, two things I have been taught to believe in, and two things which I relate to. When I see Karuna and Ahimsa being defeated all the time by powerful forces and trends in the world, when I see this beautiful concept of Karuna and Ahimsa being constantly frustrated by forces that seem to be so much stronger, I get very rattled. I feel very defeated. I seek your guidance, Your Holiness.
Like, as I mentioned earlier, we must utilize human intelligence. So now, oneself full of compassion, full of concern of other people. Meantime, some people, you see, totally against that, and then the real sort of motivation, say, out of compassion, out of concern of their well-being. So, with that motivation, for temporary, sometimes you may utilize more wrathful method. For example, now these different deities, you see, out of compassion, the sense of concern of the well-being, if there is no other way to stop that, then, if necessary, some kind of more wrathful method to stop that out of sense of compassion. So that's not not sort of out of hatred, not out of anger, but genuine sense of concern, out of compassion. Then the method, for temporary method, sometimes more forceful way to stop. So, regarding religion, particularly Buddhist Indian tradition, the main thing is motivation. If motivation is negative and a smile, give some gift, it's wrong. With sincere motivation, helping them, and some cases, if necessary, little bit sort of wrathful way. So everything, the motivation. Now here, I learned something. The quantum physics, see, judging their sort of explanation, there is differences, appearance and reality. Appearance, sometimes something negative, but deeper level, the reality, not that way. So, in any way, the quantum physicists, they say there is gap, appearance and reality. Appearance, everything objectively exists, but reality much depends on mental projection. So that's quantum physics say. One, the Indian scholar, Rajaramana, he once told me, quantum physics in the West is developed recent time. In this country, in India, 2,500 years ago, already developed. He mentioned it is very true. So when quantum physicists, they explain, of course, this little funny story. When they explain, so I sincerely listen, but in my mind, I felt, I know better. We actually daily basis practice these things and make distinction, appearance and reality, like that. So therefore, all these negative emotion, very much based on appearances, and go deeper level, then you see, not like the appearances. So therefore, all the appearances, things objectively exist. Then grasping something good, something bad, and good, too much attachment, something bad, too much anger. So, you see, these appearances are not necessarily according to reality. So the reality, every human being, including our enemy, or even the demon, all these want happiness, want peace. So everyone deserve our compassion. So make a distinction, appearance and reality. That's important. so-called enemy appears due to certain sort of reason, temporary, not the reality. The reality is still human being, still sentient being, want a peace, want a friend, want a smile. You see, thinking these lines, then the negative emotion reduce. Now my friend, some Chinese student in Lendu University, you see, some sort of have the view, a quantum physics student of quantum physics, then you see, they much reduce also grasping something negative, very much sort of grasp, and anger, some positive attachment. On that basis, too much sort of distinction, we and they. So quantum physics, some students say, oh, so they have that kind of, sort of experiences. So more because of that. Tranquility survey. Tranyam.
Equal.
Equal.
Neutral. Neutral.
Neutral. Equal.
Reaction.
Like that. Okay.
Your Holiness, our next guest is a social and women's rights activist, educationist, and writer. And close to your heart is that her work and aspirations have sought to nurture a deeper understanding of authentic Islam. That's something that's very close to your heart, and you have taken a number of initiatives in this. So it's over to you, Sayyid Hamid ji.
Korsa, dirbe. Nijil tingne yimi. Ka. O dirbe. Shibade. Tengo zomni nang kajiwa nam jigu runglu bur zine tokbata mendu bur chishin dube. Yagarji kajiwa. Ka.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. It's an honor to be in your presence. And my question flows from what Gopal said, and also from your the discourse with which you began today's conversation. Your Holiness, Islam in the eyes of the world today is synonymous with terrorism. Muslims are looked at with suspicion and aversion. Post-partition, all that my elders struggled for has lost its meaning. It's a matter of life and death, Your Holiness. What is the way forward for the 200 million Muslims of this country, and indeed the many, many more Muslims across the world? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. As I mentioned already, the Indian Muslim, I never heard, as I mentioned earlier, as a negative feeling between Sunni and Shia. So now here, we can't change their faith, Sunni and Shia. Now important is we should, we should develop more, closer relations. As I mentioned earlier, Indian Muslim, Shia and Sunni, no problem. Some other sort of Muslim country, you see the problem. So therefore, Indian Muslim should develop more wider contact with other Muslim brothers, sisters. So I suggested my friend Ladakhi Muslim. You see, I have very, very close link with them. So I suggested they should organize, firstly, national level within Indian Muslim, Shia and Sunni, and Kachigoro. So you see some meeting. We already have, you see, that kind of meeting. At that time, some Muslim from Iran also participated. So now these days, because of the illness, otherwise I'm sort of still committed occasionally some international level, firstly national level, then international level, Muslim country from different Muslim sort of faith together and discussions. So the Indian Muslim, I think, should take some initiative to closer relation with Muslim brothers, sisters in different countries. Then automatically impact within the country certainly is come. So India, as I mentioned earlier, I think religious harmony very good exist like that. So Indian Muslim can show other Muslim brothers, sisters in Muslim country where a little bit narrow-minded and show them we live together. And the Indian Muslim, I think from childhood, they already know there are different traditions, different religions. The Shia and the Sunni is to say, no problem, like that. Okay, I think Indian Muslim, you see, can make certain contribution, and for that automatically has some positive impact among the Indian Muslims. Okay.
Your Holiness, you had, after the terrorist attacks in New York, you had spoken out in support of a deeper understanding by other communities of Islam, which was being perceived as a source of terrorism and violence. And I think there's anxiety in the kind of work that Sayadaji is doing on the misunderstanding about Islam and your efforts, personal efforts to try and bridge that.
This is actually, you see, so-called terrorist, individual person. Among the Buddhists also some terrorists. Among the Jews, among the Christians, among the Hindus or Muslims. So these are sort of normal. But we cannot sort of conclude that whole sort of tradition out of some individual's behavior. So thinking deeper level, wider perspective, then the Muslim, I know, this is from childhood, Muslim. Then in Lhasa, after I think some Muslim from Ladakh reached Lhasa, then 5th Dalai Lama provided land for their temple, for their mosque. So small Muslim community in Lhasa, they always used to participate each Tibetan government function, like that. So, you see, if you show your hand, then a positive responsibility always there. If you see, remain because of the suspicion or negative attitude, then problem happen. So therefore, I think basically the Muslim, I think in Lhasa, there are Muslim community, but no record Muslim community create problem. or fighting. Muslim community, small community in Lhasa, very peaceful. So many Tibetan monk, you see, they fond go to Muslim family, and those Muslim trader go between Tibet and India. So the sources of information about Mahatma Gandhiji, about, you see, India's sort of freedom fight. So it's a Tibetan, in Lhasa area, Tibetan, many Tibetan, is a fond visit Mongolian businessmen. Muslim, yes. Like that, very peaceful, very peaceful. Okay.
The next question is from another old friend of yours, Shyam Saran, who served as India's Foreign Secretary and also accompanied us on that pilgrimage to different traditions that you and the respect for them that you have embodied. And he has often argued that he is pro-Tibetan and pro-Dalai Lama because he is pro-India. And so he's pro both Guru and the Chela. Shyam, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Holiness, for your constant blessings. I'm really privileged to have this opportunity of listening to you and also to pose some question to you. You have often said, and you repeated today, that while it is very important for us to maintain physical hygiene, and we pay a lot of attention to maintaining physical hygiene, but perhaps we don't pay much attention to our emotional hygiene or to our mental hygiene, and that it is as important to keep our minds clean as we keep our bodies clean. And it is true that perhaps through a practice of meditation, you are able to try and cleanse your mind. My question is that while the way for an individual seems to be fairly clear, how do we ensure the cleanliness of mind of an entire community? How do we ensure the cleanliness of mind for entire country and, of course, the entire world? Because what you are able to do individually, if you are not able to translate that into a community sort of practice, it is difficult to see how we can make a difference. We have, for example, in India today, this Swachh Bharat campaign to keep India clean. But how do we make certain that the minds of Indians also are cleansed in the process? Thank you, Your Holiness.
Okay. Kasa, Darwe.
Loud.
Samkom Choden, the Chizo, the Mikela. As I already mentioned, the 1,000-year-old India's tradition of Ahimsa and the Karuna now should put in education field or secular way. So now this, for the time being, this illness,
Coronavirus pandemic.
Pandemic.
No, pandemic.
This illness, this problem, you see, as soon as this, reduce, I'm thinking seriously, you see, firstly, now here, my public sort of teaching. Then I'm very, very eager go to Delhi. Some scholars. So how to put in education field strictly secular way about, you see, the Ahimsa, Karuna. And here, I think the Nalanda tradition as I already mentioned, much resources how to tackle our anger, fear, jealousy, and how to develop the positive emotion, karuna, these things. So these, although information come from Buddhist text, but we should consider these are academic subject, not religious subject. So how can now, as I mentioned earlier, how can sort of combine the ancient Indian knowledge and because of the today's reality. So I'm thinking, I'm a very, very eager go to Delhi and also some places for mainly education. I see there is great potential now that we must sort of utilize. For that, we have to discuss how to start the proper sort of a proper way, like that. There is no other alternative to look west. No answer. To Africa, also difficult. Now, in the sense of because of the West, the Western European countries, and then Eastern the Eastern countries. I think not much idea. China, there is potential, but recent decades, you see, deliberately or say controlled. Now, fortunately, these days, Buddhist number in China now much increase. Now nearly 400 million Buddhists. So in any way, but you see, they have no opportunity to study these sort of complicated sort of subject. So now, I think India should make some effort. And for that, as I mentioned earlier, I am very, very keen to discuss, to organize some educationist sort of meeting and scholars. As I mentioned earlier, a revival of ancient Indian knowledge and combine modern knowledge and ancient Indian knowledge in the name of hygiene of physical, hygiene of emotion. Okay.
Our next question, Your Holiness, is from Aruna Roy, who's an activist on numerous issues related to the poor and the marginalized. She's helped catalyze laws related to the right to information, the right to work, and the right to food. You have visited Aruna and her husband in Telonia at the Barefoot College some years ago, and she has an old connection with you. She met you when she was 9 years old. Aruna.
Susa.
Aruna, Rajasthan,
Correct.
Rajasthan. No, my favorite. No.
Barefoot College.
Correct.
Chonsip.
Okay.
Yes, Aruna, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Aruna. Unmute yourself.
Your Holiness, it's an honor to be with you, even though virtually. We met at the Barefoot College. You spent 24 hours, and I had the honor of serving you in 2011, if you remember. These are very difficult times, Your Holiness, both in India and globally. As Saida was saying, there is so much hatred and there's so much inversion of truth and justice, where wrong is portrayed as right and right is prosecuted. Secularism is also seen with with criticism. So being secular is no longer a freedom in India. How do we deal with this environment when we're dealing with poverty, with differences, with hostility, and with so many other issues? How do we address the environment and ourselves in this context, Your Holiness?
그래, 좋을게. 나가래. 대보다 장대는 도르더만. I have the feeling. So today's world, following the previous century. So now, if we use our sort of our intelligence, then previous century, a lot of problem, a lot of killing. Now they still many traces of problem is simply people's mind simply copy about past or also the experience, past history. So now I think I may use some kind of revolutionary thinking, something different. You see, we should not sort of follow the past sort of way of life, way of thinking. Now situation much change, population much increase, and a lot of problem. And also you see problem due to rich and poor. Global level, national level, these problems there. Now we have to think seriously. Now, what's the reason in previous time, these problems? Now we have to follow different way to overcome, you see, these because of the narrow-minded thinking about past history. So through education, again I think through education, and too much emphasis we and they, as I already mentioned, we really, ultimately we need a sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. Then within the country, no question, the religious different of color, all these different of nationality, these are secondary. Mainly we are same human being. So through education, I think also today sort of, sometimes I feel the children, young child, when they not yet join education, school, they not much consider importance of different religion, different nationality. So long, smiling, play together, the sameness of brothers, sisters there. Once they join education, then they develop the thinking, different religion, different nationality, in America and some other country, different sort of color, like that. So then in school, emphasis differences. Before that, by nature, the sense of oneness is there. Now our education, children, by nature, sense of oneness there. Now education must sort of emphasize that value. We are same. We all want happy life. So education is the key factor. That's my feeling. So today's problem, you see, we simply follow the sort of old way of thinking, still go that, then problem. So now, new situation. So on top of that, as I already mentioned, environment problem. So global warming, these are now new serious sort of what's it cause of the problem. So now world change. Then you see the previous century. So now education or way of thinking, way of life must now adopt according new circumstances, not simply repeat the past sort of way of thinking, way of life. I feel that. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. And now the last question from the son of a very dear friend of yours, Baba Amte. This is Dr. Prakash Amte, who goes every morning. He works for the tribals and he goes for his morning walk with 2 leopards. Prakash Bhai.
Thank you, His Holiness. My question is...
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Prakash Bhai.
Okay.
Thank you, His Holiness. My father Baba had studied many religions, but his work started with humanity as a religion. Historically, we have considered sexuality, procreation as human, natural, and necessary. However, the history of sexual violence is as ancient as it is brutal. We continue to see it being used as a tool to define, strengthen, and accentuate class, caste, and gender boundaries. Is such behavior native to humankind? How do we get people to stop this? Thank you very much.
Yes. Now, as I already mentioned, we also as I mentioned earlier, when we were young, you see, no feeling of distinction. Now, gradually, the different races, different country, and also sex, all these, you see, later develop. So, education according, more emphasis about past negligence, and due to that, now today we face some unnecessary problem. So through education, we can change these things. So most important is education. And then sometimes the religion also, you see, some sort of impact about because of the differences. And for example, male and female and different race, color, like this. Then that, now, as I mentioned earlier, the secular way of thinking, then these are, you see, outdated. So education, I feel education is key thing. So as I mentioned earlier, I am very, very eager go to Delhi and some meeting with some educationists, some professors, some scientists. Like that? Okay. Admission. Amde. Yes. Oh. As soon as I received the Nobel Peace Prize, then I immediately decided some portion of that money give as a Baba Amde. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. On behalf of the 7 or 8 of us who've had the privilege of talking to you, of the millions of people around the world, for your time and your blessings. And as I always describe myself as an unworthy student of yours, in a very un-Buddhist way, may I say a prayer, even though you've said that prayer isn't essentially a Buddhist aspiration. A short prayer on behalf of all of us to you, Your Holiness. It's a long life prayer. To the assembly of most kind teachers, both present and past, the miraculous dance of the body, speech, and mind of innumerable Buddhas, manifesting in accord with the aspirant's spiritual capacities, the wish-granting jewel, the source of all virtue and goodness. To you we offer our prayers with the fervent devotion that Tenzin Gyatso, protector of the land of snows, live for 100 eons. Shower on him your blessings, so that his aspirations are fulfilled without hindrance, and that we may all be his worthy students. Thank you, Your Holiness.
That's all.
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, I'm thinking, looking forward one sort of meeting from time to time in Delhi or Chandigarh or these places. We need. So the problem, when more problem there, then we need serious discussion. That's very important. We should not have the feeling, oh, this is our way of life, this is our way of life. Should not thinking that way. Day and night, although they are the same sun, same moon, but on detail, sun also changing, moon also changing. So we also now, same human being, but the situation changing. So we have to think according to the new change. Basically, of course, I admire, say, Western materialistic civilization. I really admire. But thinking, as I mentioned earlier, see, the hygiene of emotion, totally lacking. So now we, people in this country, I think we should be more active. Okay. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.